All right, it looks like we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome from wherever you are in the world. Thank you for being here. My name is Justin Conroy. I'm the program manager for Radix US, and today we're doing the Radix Talk number 5, Radix Talk Plus number 5, hosted by Radix US. And today we're going to be talking about the importance of leadership in a rapidly changing world. I do want to talk about a few logistics today. So we do have a live stream here. It's a virtual panel discussion. And our intent today is to give the speakers some time to discuss and present their ideas and thoughts on the theme. And then we're going to move to a Q&A portion of the section. So if at any point you have any questions that you would like the speakers to address, please feel free to type them into the chat on the YouTube page, and we will get to them as time progresses. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get Rich on the screen here and introduce him. Rich Froge is the Radix US president. He's held several executive roles in his career at companies like Siemens, FMC, Oxy Petroleum, and Kinder Morgan. And he is our primary digital transformation evangelist. And he does that by spreading the message that data is a strategic asset when converted into transparent operational and business intelligence. So, Rich, thank you very much for being here, sir.
Thanks for the introduction, Justin. The world today faces multiple pressure points, which are impacting many countries' individual economic and cultural frameworks and how these same governments and businesses interact. The COVID-19 pandemic has been the catalyst which has brought hidden government, social, and business inefficiencies and inequalities to the surface and has now created a global inflection point. The question is, which direction will we move? Economies around the globe have been impacted by forced government shutdowns to contain the virus, and unprecedented acceleration in business foreclosures and job losses have occurred, not seen since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Governments face intensifying demands to address climate change, social and racial injustice, diversity, and inclusivity. The U.S. is considering decoupling from China as a response to the birth of the virus, with the aspirations of generating a U.S. manufacturing renaissance. Digital supply chains have evolved, causing a dramatic shift in how we work, interact, and consume. Large digital savvy firms have actually taken on more market share and are becoming even more dominant and influential. In this new ecosphere, who needs a centralized office anymore? Intentional government action to contain the spread of the virus has resulted in significant decline in economic activity, which has never been experienced before. The velocity of the oil price decline was unprecedented, as has been the recent price rebound. What was different this time, though, was the strategy to mitigate earnings risk through diversification via an integrated business model in the oil and gas industry didn't work. There has been no resurgence in downstream activity. Who would have ever imagined that the price of oil would have traded at minus $37 per barrel? And then who would have imagined that it would have rebounded this quickly to over $40 today? People will put up with awful, terrible, incompetent leadership as long as things are going well. But when an unforeseen crisis occurs, rank and file perspectives change. The focus turns to leadership, competence, and the pressure on management and the organization skyrockets. Let's talk a little bit about that pressure. Once again, ordinary leaders in the oil and gas industry today are responding as they always do, always have, cutting CapEx and OpEx expenditures, accelerating retirements, implementing strategy and benefits cuts, laying off staff, conserving cash by extending accounts payable periods, and asking suppliers to cut their prices. They will talk about shrinking the business, right-sizing, re-engineering the organizations to get lean and mean. The goal is to reduce their break-even price to 20 or 30 bucks a barrel. Boy, how fast did we go from peak oil to peak demand and now lower for longer. I believe the oil and gas industry has reached an inflection point also. We've experienced multiple oil crises before, but we never seem to ask, what did we set out to do? What actually happened? Why did it happen? And what are we going to do next time? In fact, the truth is, we always forget about the next time and we go back to normal operations. Rita McGrath's book, it's a new book that I just read, talks about how visionary leaders can see around corners and spot inflection points before they happen. They create and cultivate internal skunk works confidence who can tell them the truth without fear of retribution. They view negative or unexpected feedback as a gift. They step outside their own industry, seeking diverse points of view by attending conferences to broaden their own perspective, network, listen, and learn what others are doing. They have an uncanny ability to collect and process complex data and connect the dots. They sense, learn, and act. They have the smarts and the guts to pivot from bad decisions. They thrive on generating business enabling intelligence that helps them create competitive advantages. They leverage the intersection of human talent and digital innovation. They empower people, pushing decision-making down to the point of action. They believe in innovation proficiency, not theater. They communicate consistently with the rank and file via live streaming platforms, and they are a big user of LinkedIn. They build disruption into their organization. They treat others as they want to be treated. They view people as their best asset and recognize that even blue-collar workers have tremendous amount of knowledge as they are at the edge at that point of action. Visionary leaders today are digital Jedi masters. A great example of how the oil and gas industry embraced and internalized cultural transformational change occurred after the Occidental Petroleum Piper Alpha incident on July 6, 1988. I actually experienced that transformation firsthand because I was with Oxy at the time. However, sometimes we have to learn it all over again. I make reference to the Macondo Deepwater Horizon incident, April of 2010. 3 years ago, I had the pleasure of attending a Petroleum Club luncheon. The keynote speaker was the president of one of the super majors' key business units. The topic was about enabling technology and how it had transformed the industry. The technologies discussed included the ability to identify multiple shale pay zones, drill horizontally at long distances, and execute multiple fracs. The innovation was a renaissance for the oil and gas industry, which propelled it from the confines of peak oil. After the official program, I asked the speaker what they envisioned would be the next enabling technology. The answer was the ability to convert raw data into actionable intelligence through digital transformation. This leader was able to see around the corner and see the future. One of the most inspirational keynotes that I just heard recently came from the CEO of a national oil company. The message was business strategy equals digital strategy. The speaker explained, you can't delegate digital transformation. You have to own it. Executives need to engage, embrace, and adopt new ways of working with the latest and emerging technologies. And that's been our differentiating story, and it will continue to be. They went on to say, but you don't mix up your vision with your roadmap or vehicle to get there. Digital and intelligence transparency changes how the organization thinks, acts, and works. The evolution is created by your people who thirst for more authority and autonomy, which drives productivity. In closing, the oil and gas industry is driven by people who fuel enabling technology. In several previous crises, enabling technology has saved the oil and gas industry, but has been the human capital side of the business, which has always been resilient. Visionary leaders encourage people to excel and challenge the status quo. My favorite leadership Jedi master from my studies during college was a gentleman by the name of Peter Drucker. I want to just share a couple of quotes with you. Management is about doing things right. Leadership is doing the right thing. Knowledge has to be improved, challenged, and increased consistently and constantly, or it vanishes. The best way to predict the future is to create it. If you want something new, you have to stop doing something old. We can all think about examples where organizational resistance to change won because it was embedded into the culture. Leaders who can see around the corner drive cultural change in responding to business inflection points. With that said, I now pass the baton to Mr. John Duconi.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate you hearing your thoughts there. Let me go ahead and give John a little introduction here. So I'll get John on the screen. John DeConing is our Senior Vice President of Radix US, heading up business development in the Europe region. He's a former technology manager at Shell and was the leader of one of the most successful transformation projects they've seen so far. John's extensive history has proven a top-level mastery when it comes to streamlining operations for complex business challenges. So, John, thank you for being here and excited to hear what you have to say.
Okay, thanks very much for the introduction. So, yeah, I think Rich already mentioned a few very important key points about leadership. I think what's really important in leadership and during my career that were things that I constantly noticed is the drive for change. As long as you start doing effectively nothing, you only will go backwards. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned during my whole career. Be aware of change. Look for opportunities. There is always something going to happen tomorrow. Be prepared for tomorrow. There are so many dependencies within the business that we are operating in and that we are working in all together, that it is really essential to stay ahead of the herd to make sure that you also stay competitive. One of the key drivers for that is to make sure that from a leadership and an executive level, you understand where you want to be. So what is it, your vision that you would like to drive? Make sure that your vision is being understood, that you have a common vision within your common and a shared vision within your company, so that it becomes easier for the rest of your organization to understand where the corporation is going to, so that they can adjust their local visions and strategy to that. So from that perspective, the initial leadership is not only coming from an executive level, but I think leadership needs to come from all of us. So we all have our own responsibilities. We all see opportunities. The only thing that we need to make sure is that we're not going to jump to conclusions, jump to technology, jump to implementations. Make sure that as part of your personal leadership, that you understand why things are happening as they are happening. Make sure that you understand what it is that you can do to influence where you want to be, where you want the company to be. And make sure that others start to learn your thinking so that you're able to share again your vision and share it with your leadership. So that there will be a top-down and a bottom-up discussion about vision and strategy. One thing that Rich already mentioned is change management and resistance to change. I think the key reason why there is a resistance to change is not understanding why we would like to change, why there is a need to change. And we have been doing this for many years. Why change? But that's always been good. And that's the key reasons for the change. That is something that should come from a corporate or a company vision that is shared throughout the corporation, and everybody understands what the impact will be on the changes for him as an individual, what an individual could do for his personal leadership to take actions, to drive the changes that are needed in the organization. And that's the same when you start driving from your business opportunities towards a digital transformation. And I think that's the right order. First of all, you need to understand where it is that you would like to bring your business, what it is that you would like to change in your business to become more effective and to become more competitive in the current market. And based from then, when you understand what you would like to do, that you then start driving on, okay, what is my way to get there? So before jumping too much into many details, I would like to give Alan also an opportunity to explain a little bit his vision and his items and experiences in this area.
Awesome. Thank you very much, John. Very, very good. So I'm going to go ahead and get Alan on the screen now and give him a quick introduction. So Alan Forte, thank you for being here, sir. Alan is the owner of People Programs Group and is a retired U.S. Army colonel, is a TEDx speaker, and is also the author of several books, including Transformational Planning and his latest book titled Becoming Uncommonly Effective. Alan specializes in coaching executive leadership to enhance the performance of people and to better align people to the inherent purposes of business and life. So, Alan, with that, I'll pass it over to you and love to hear your thoughts on leadership in the rapidly changing world.
So thank you. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are. I'd like to start by just saying that we've actually have a crisis of leadership right now in the world, really all around us. There's a crisis, and by that, what I mean is it's really difficult to really distinguish the leader from the non-leader. Leaders don't look any different than the people that they lead. They don't sound any different than the people they lead. They don't walk any different. They don't talk any different. It's really tough for us to distinguish just where is the leader today. You have that at the personal level, and you have it in business as well. And that causes a tremendous amount of problems when we've normalized everything such that people get the sense that you don't really need to have leadership at all. Their thinking is, he has his job, she has her job. If we just come in and do our jobs, everything will be okay. But that's not the case. We need leaders, and leaders are the reasons that ultimately things work or they don't work, or that we pass or fail, or that we're successful or not. It's just really difficult for us to understand that when we try to normalize everything. When you don't have leaders, things tend to congregate together. In the late 80s, somewhere between 87 and 88, I was on military assignment in Berlin, Germany. And this was during a time when the Soviet Union was still there, the wall was still up in East Germany. Berlin back then was 110 miles into what was East Germany. If you remember the demographics at the time, we had West Germany and we had East Germany. We were 110 miles into East Germany, living in West Berlin, a free city that was surrounded by communism. And every day I spent my days studying and understanding and learning what I could about the East Germans and about the Soviet Union. And this is what I found. Because of the lack of leadership in what was then the Soviet Union, everything about East Germany and that part of the world was basically the same. If you were a 30-year-old East German at the time, all you knew was East Germany, communism, socialism, and a wall, and you didn't have really any sense of knowing what freedom was like. Freedom was a term that you probably didn't really hear at all. Every car was the same in East Germany. Every house was the same. Everyone was paid basically the same salary. Quality was the same, if there was such a thing as quality. There was no status. There was no high status or low status. Everything was the same. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that there was no leadership. There was no one to bring vision. There was no one to bring hope. There was no one to bring strategy. People woke up every day, and like robots, they went into work every day. They did what they needed to do every day, and they went home to the same homes, the same cars. Schools were the same. The clothing was the same. If you can just imagine a world where there was no differentiation at all. And businesses were the same. If you went to a restaurant on this corner, it would be the same as the restaurant around the corner. This happened because they intentionally created an environment where hope and dreams and things of that nature were suppressed. But people didn't want to be any different either. People were very comfortable being given and provided everything that they were by the government. I learned from East Germany and from the Soviet Union that leadership was really, really, really important, because when you don't have change, things tend to stagnate. Great leaders around us typically do something that we don't do ourselves. Most of us are going to resist change, especially if we feel as if we've gotten things to work. We don't want to change it at that point. If we've got a product that's working, we're going to want to work on selling that product and doing more of it every day, but we think very seldom about making a change. But great leaders, those who are very different from us, they actually use change to create the success that they need for their future. They'll actually inject change intentionally into their employees, into their processes, or wherever it is, in order to get control of their future. While those of us who resist change push it aside because we think we can keep control, great leaders inject change because they want to get control. And that's kind of where I want to settle my talk with you today, to help you understand what happens when we don't, as leaders, envision the change that's necessary for us to take ourselves into our futures. We're not just getting older. As we get older, we should be getting better. I have a saying that I say with most of my people that I coach, that we should come in and think that we are better today than we were yesterday, better tomorrow than we'll be today. And for that to happen, you have to really become uncomfortable today with who you were yesterday. You cannot continue to think that we can keep being successful today based on what we did yesterday. Things are always changing out there in the world around you, and you've got to be able to be open to change as the world goes on. So I joke sometimes and say, if the same person got up this morning looking in the mirror and you're about to brush your teeth, and that was the same person that went to bed the night before, you should get back in bed and you should say to that person, a new person should be getting up today, because change has happened in the time that you've spent sleeping, and you've got to go out of the house today being a different person, being a newer person. So I want to talk with you now for maybe about 3 minutes on the one thing that I see that keeps people from really achieving their very, very best, that keeps companies from achieving their very, very best, that keeps families from achieving their very, very best. And I kind of wish that it was really a complex thing, but it really isn't. It is the resistance to changing. It's the number one reason why businesses reach a point to where success becomes more difficult for them. It's because they resist the need to change. Change is always happening, and you've got to be open to injecting change into yourself and into your business processes in order to keep achieving success. And I'll just talk to you through this briefly. If this will work, I'll draw a little picture for you on the board, and hopefully it'll work for you. But all of us go through a life cycle of living. This is a life cycle of you personally and of your business. On the left-hand side of this is our growth. We start a business, you start a job, you're excited about that job, and you come in and you are excited about the growth that you can get. And because you are new, because the product is new, because the business is new, you can expect 5 to 7 years worth of growth just because you put a product on the market. Somewhere along the way, however, in that 5 to 7 years, you reach that top of the pinnacle. And when that happens, you've got to make 2 decisions. And these decisions are not going to be noticeable to you. They are happening and occurring, and the need for them are happening all along. So what are those two decisions when you reach that pinnacle? Well, first is a reassessment of the business purpose or of your personal person. Who am I today and who do I need to be tomorrow? After about 5 to 7 years, every single business and every single person, those of you who are on this call, need to stop and settle your life and ask that question. It is a rediscovery of what your purpose should be. And this is frightening, especially if you feel as if you've been successful so far. You don't want to look at changing who you are or perhaps your purpose, but it's absolutely necessary for you to keep growing and growing and growing and achieving even more growth. The next decision point is even more important, and that's to ask yourself, is the product or the service that I have today the one that can take us into the next iteration of our growth, our transformation? So it's more about the product. And this is more about not just what the product is, but how it works and why it works. This is where you get your effectiveness and your efficiency from. So if you don't take a look at your product, if you don't take a look at what you're doing, if you don't take a look at how you're doing, what tends to happen along this pinnacle is that it gets a little harder for you to be successful. It gets a little harder because things begin to flatten out. And as they flatten out, you start to gradually decline. And as Rich was saying earlier, you start doing things now as a business or as a person to falsely create growth. You reduce people, you tighten your belt, you become more lean. What you don't realize is that because you have resisted making a necessary change, what you're doing now is to start your downfall. The first thing that happens in this first level of growth is that you have a people failure. And I call this not only a failure at your and my level, but it's really a failure of leadership to really discover what needs to happen at this pinnacle to create that new you, and then to set off again on another growth pattern that can give you then usually 7 to 10 years more growth when you stop and examine your people and ensure that they are now aligned with the purpose, and when you take a look at your product and determine whether or not that's the product or the service or the way that you can go into your new future. Now, as I said to you before, I'm coaching people all the time, and this is probably one of the most difficult things for them to embrace and to internalize. This is when I'm sitting with them and I'm saying to them, the thing that's keeping you from the success you want is you. The thing that's keeping you from growing faster is you. When you refuse to change, you can't stay up with the change that's happening all around you anyway. There are a number of other things that really factor into this idea of being a great leader, understanding what that really means. You can't learn these kinds of things from just reading a book. You really have to know what's going on around the business. You can't measure your success based just on achieving goals. You have to understand sometimes the right things to do are the kinds of things that get you to planting a seed, knowing that it might take 8 months to 12 months before you get a fruit. But if you don't plant that seed, you don't get the fruit after the 8 to 12 months, no matter how hard you try. I'll stop here and give you guys an opportunity to kind of digest some of what I'm saying. But just understand that great people are different from us. They don't want to be a part of this crisis that we have. When you have a great leader around you, they're going to be the kind of person who's a little bit different from you are. Not in a prideful way or anything like that, but they're going to represent something a little bit better than you. And that's a good thing. Leadership needs to be a little better than the people that they're leading. They need to walk a little straighter than the people that they're walking with. They need to speak a different language than the people that they're speaking. not pridefully and not in a way that elevates themselves, but because they want to elevate everyone around them. When everything's the same, we end up with places and people like we had in the Soviet Union and in East Germany, where there was a nation of people who had no hope. They went into work every day. They did all the things they did every day, and they went home every day without the hope of anything better than just another day of drudgery. When you don't have great leadership around you, it causes people to moan and groan at the days that they spend with us, coming in and spending 8, 10, 12 hours of their time with us and not being fulfilled or satisfied by the things that we're asking them to do or the places that we're taking them with our businesses. Justin, I'll stop there and turn it back over to you.
That's powerful stuff, Alan. Thank you very much. Very, very cool. Guys, we're doing really good on time. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to go ahead and add Rich and John back to the screen here. So what I'd like to do now is kind of move this into the Q&A section, and for the audience, just to give you guys some time to type your questions in. We've heard some really, really great thoughts from the speakers today. Hopefully they've sparked some thoughts, and hopefully you have some questions. In the meantime, while we wait, I'm going to go ahead and ask some specific, planned questions for each of these guys, just to give you some time. So we've got about 15 minutes for Q&A. So Rich, I'm going to start with you, if that's all right. So, Radix, of course, we're a premier digital transformation partner with experience in both the human and the technology side of the equation. Can you tell us a little bit about the different types of leadership that we've seen in the market and some of the pitfalls that come with a top-down approach versus the bottom-up approach?
Thanks for the question, Justin. Before I proceed to address the question, I just got to make a comment. I've known Alan for 20 years, and I always hear a new story from him every time I see him. He's that kind of guy. You talk about an individual that you can really learn from and grow. That's Mr. Forte. Okay, so bottom up versus top down. I've never really seen bottom up take hold within an organization. There are areas where digital transformation is successful, but it's all based on the individual that instituted that and they kind of drive it. If there's not a champion within the organization helping them, it basically just fails over a period of time. So I just really don't have too many examples of where those kind of programs have been successful, but there are pockets. I can say that there's pockets of success. But we've talked about leadership this whole time and leaders not accepting resistance to change and how important it is to evolve, okay, and learn, continuously learn and improve. And to me, that's the leader is the person that drives the change towards digital transformation. They have to craft and articulate a concise vision, a roadmap, and they have to deliver that message concisely to their organization. But that doesn't mean that the leader does that in a vacuum. The leader knows that he's got to create buy-in. He's got to sell how this digital transformation is going to affect the organization in a positive way, but also the people. Actually, digital transformation, in many respects, improves job security, because it improves the effectiveness of the company and the profitability. So it is something that everybody should embrace. You heard me talk about the example where I used the CEO when he said that, the CEO has to own digital transformation. I think that was a very unique speech that I heard, because I really never heard that from anybody. But that shows you how committed he was to make that successful. But he also realizes that the tough component is the people. The technology side's easy. It's the people side that creates the challenge. And that's a journey. I mean, we've heard people talk about that many times. It doesn't happen overnight. But once you've got the leader that's embraced it and he's driving it, typically people get on board or they leave the organization. So.
Thanks, Rich. Good answer. Good answer. Just so you guys know, I there was a little bit of background noise, so I went ahead and muted everybody except for Rich. Still waiting on questions. So, John, going to move on to you next. You've been part of what I've heard to be one of the most successful digital print transformation projects in the market with your job at Shell, your last job. Can you tell us what you believe is the most important factor in driving the success of projects like that?
And it's a common topic that's constantly coming back, but it is managing change, helping people to go where they don't want to go by themselves. And so there is resistance to change, and you need to understand why there is resistance. So that was one of the things that I learned during my journey. So we wanted to make a significant change. We understood business opportunity that was out there, but we were not able to drive it. And so there was an enormous resistance. Everybody was believing from, okay, yes, we need to standardize, take my standard, and then I'm happy if you deploy it everywhere. So I don't need to change, someone else needs to change. So I think that was the biggest challenges that we had to face. Now, how did we overcome that challenge? So first of all, it was really important to, together with the executive leadership team, we identified why why do we want to change? So what are the key business drivers? Where do we want to bring the business to a better position? And based on that vision, we identified a good strategy how to implement what we wanted to do. So we identified some very good new ways of working. So in the oil and gas industry, it became really important to increase your reliability, to increase your availability. So key things that we wanted to drive and bring to people is how to make sure that they're having the right tools and the right information to make sure that what they are doing in their job, they effectively were not failing or got the feeling they were failing. So we brought, based on what we wanted to achieve at the company, we tried to translate that and how we could help individuals with the new toolkits to do a better job, help them to understand how they could become a better person tomorrow with better achievements by bringing the new vision and the new strategy, the new technology, the new workflows that we're introducing. So once people are understanding that they are really being helped from a leadership perspective, that it is not a way of enforcing people to change, but helping them to understand how they can do a better job themselves. That was a real game changer to bring the implementation of the big changes that we were doing. And by that, we were able to standardize significantly. And changing mindsets on each level in the organization needs different approaches. For example, in a large organization where I'm coming from, there were a lot of more or less independent working sites. Every site was having its own more or less vision, strategy, approach, budgets, priorities. And then when you would like to drive a global standard, the key thing is that you need at a mid-level in the organization, you need to help those people in those organizations also to become more effective. And that is what we did by not asking them to sacrifice what they are doing, sacrifice their budget, sacrifice their resources. No, helping them with additional budget from a corporate level, helping them with additional resources, so that together we could make them more successful. And because when they are more successful, I need to put it the other way, when their facility they operate is becoming more successful, they become more successful and also more satisfaction in what they're doing in the daily job. And so I think those were some of the key learnings that I could take out of that program. Is just make sure that you really understand well on a corporate level what you would like to do, translate that on a local level, how that could help people so that you can convince people and bring people where they don't want to be by themselves. And in that combination, deploy the changes that you would like to implement and make people enthusiastic by making sure that you're helping them to do a better job.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Looks like we have two questions from the audience. Hopefully it's okay with everybody. I'm going to actually address the second question first, because it's directed at Alan, and we need to let Alan speak. So, Alan, I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen. But the question is from Leo. It says, "How should a leader use hope? Everyone is talking fail fast. When does creating hope around a path become harmful for an organization? How to identify that a new path is needed?"
Leaders not doing his or her job if they're not creating an organization that's inspired, that you can close your eyes as an employee or even a customer for that matter, doesn't really matter. But if you can close your eyes and see how things are going to unfold for you, see how things are going to unfold for your business, see how things are going to unfold with a relationship with a client, these things can't be spelled out in a contract. It takes a leader to create that sense of how the future is going to look. And when you can see that, feel that, touch that, then it creates the hope that you're coming in every day and are going to be contributing to something that is of value, that's going to change the future, that's going to make things better. Hope is one of those things that's really an underlying foundational thing that gives meaning to all that you're doing. It isn't about failing as much as it is about helping people see what the future is going to look like and then aligning themselves and getting committed to taking a journey to achieve that. It's never harmful, and harmful ideas are not bad, but hope that's inspired by a vision of purpose that's going to really change or transform something is never really bad. And you should be expecting that from your leaders. You should expect that of yourself, by the way. So I'm asking you to be that leader who creates an inspiration and that inspires hope. I'm asking you to do that. And if your organization is not doing it, you should demand it from them as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. So we have one more question from the audience. I'm going to go ahead and put that one on the screen now. That's from Alicia Reed. It says, "What recommendations do you have for convincing leadership that a digital transformation effort is needed?" Anybody want to raise their hands and take that one, or should I pick somebody? I'm going to pick Rich.
Well, yeah, I'll start the conversation. I think that's where the objections start is with the leadership. And it's extremely challenging, I'll just be honest, to try to convince leaders that digital transformation is something that can provide them with a competitive advantage. But I think actually, if you look around in today's environment, if you don't embrace digital transformation, your organization is probably going to be left behind. And you're actually not optimizing the value of your workforce, because digital transformation is a tool and it provides the organization with a catalyst to be able to become more effective and efficient in their jobs. I think, John talked about that. It actually you have to convey the message to, I guess, the leadership on how it's really going to energize the entire company. It's going to make them a lot more productive, and that means profitability. And that's what's important to leadership, is the bottom line. So you change the conversation from digital transformation to, hey, you want to make more money? Well, this is a way to do it. That's my message. I'll pass it to John.
All right, John, go ahead.
Yeah, that's I'm fully agreeing with you there, Rich. Because effectively, should we talk about the digital transformation? You already mentioned that digital transformation is a tool, and that is 100% correct. It is a tool. Is that the real thing that we need to go for? No, it's the business transformation that we need to go to. And that is how you convince your leaders. Make sure that they understand which opportunities are out there, how they can generate more value with their business. And then try to understand, when you know what you would like to change and how you would like to change, what is the best technology support that you can find to do the things better that you want to do. And that is the introduction of the tool. So first you need to think about your business transformation, and then find the best way in matching a digital transformation to make that new way of working so as effective as possible.
Alan, did you have anything you want to add to that?
I would just say that as leaders, there are these 6 areas of discipline that we go through. We whether you know it or not. And at the foundation of that is what I call your perspective, your thinker, how you're thinking. Some of us are sloppy thinkers, so you end up being sloppy in everything. Everything starts with your thinking, even your business thinking. So as you work your way up from these 6 disciplines, and you'll notice as I go through these, you can tell, you probably go, yes, that person's like that, and no, this person is not. So you've got people who are great thinkers. On top of that, because you're a great thinker, you are probably the type of person who prepares better, prepared to be successful for the things that you're not even asked to be done today. So I see digital transformation as one of those things that it may not necessarily be something that you see that you need to do today, but you've got to be prepared to be successful at what we're not asking you to do, because that's what keeps you going. So on top of that preparation is what I call your way with people. It's how we interact with one another. And this is not just the personal interactions within the business, but it's also business to business. That way with people has to be solid. Where change and the resistance to change comes in is in the next level, which is courage and decision making. You've got to have the courage to make the changes that you ought to make when they should be made at the time. Every change has a moment in time when it's right to do it, and you've got to be able to do it at that time. And so if you don't have the courage as a business or as a person to really embrace the change, and that's why I said earlier, great leaders actually use change as a way to get control. They use change as a way to be successful. They intentionally bring the change to bear rather than waiting until it's forced upon them. Beyond those 2, I'll give you the last 2, teamwork and team play, and then on top of that would be results, which we're all trying to achieve. But you work your way up to results, and ultimately you work your way through the need to make changes, which happens around the courage and decision-making discipline in those 6 disciplines.
Thank you, sir. Guys, we're getting some really good questions from the audience. We're technically over time on the Q&A section, but if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to extend the Q&A just a little bit. Maybe we shave down on our closing remarks and such, because this is good questions. All right, I'm seeing nods, so I'm going to go ahead and put the next one on the screen. It's from Zack. It says the champion role can be some big shoes to fill, especially considering that people often have multiple job responsibilities. Can this role be distributed across several people? Could this work? Anybody want to start? I'll just unmute everybody here. Let's see if the background noise still exists. I think we're good.
Alan, why don't you go first?
Zack, I would say to you that the leaders have to be bigger than the role. So if the role requires big shoes, you should have big feet. You can't be an effective leader if you're just limited to your skill and your capability. One of the things that makes a leader great is the sense that that leader touches many things, and while he or she may not be the expert at many things, they have an understanding of what makes many things expert-like. And those are some big shoes to fill, which means that you've got to grow some bigger feet. Can it be distributed across several people? Yes, if you're a great leader and you're able to do that. Can it work? Yes. In my world, it always comes back to whether or not you've got the leader who can pull that off. And have you created the environment within the organization to where people are allowed to really maximize on the potential that they have? Sometimes we structure the roles in an organization so tightly that we actually make it dysfunctional because we don't get the best from people. So the answer to your question is yes. And the greater answer is I'd love for you to be that kind of leader who brings that to bear in the organization where you are.
Awesome. Just for sake of time, I'm going to move on to the next question. So I'm going to put it up on the screen. It's from Derek. It says, what's the strategy around outsourcing certain things to specialize in certain areas versus doing everything internally versus in-house? And actually, so John, I'm gonna unmute you and let you take that one. I think you'd be the best person for it.
Yeah. So yes, I've been in that position. So making the decisions or trying to understand what would be a good approach. Doing everything in-house, of course, everything is possible. But looking to a big advantage when going external is also having external opinions. And I think that is the real power. When you constantly work with the same people in the same area on the same topics, you tend to create a tunnel vision. And you're not being influenced enough from the outside world of what's going on or what could be done. And I think that's the key advantage of having an external influence, so that you're able to get the external expertise, external opinions that triggers you to start thinking about new ways of working, triggers you to start thinking about change and implementing change. And that's always looking to what I did within my previous roles. I tried to keep a balance between 50-50, 50 internal, 50 external. Internal to make sure that there is a very good understanding within the team about the vision and strategy of the company, how the company is operating, what the current workflows are, and the 50% external to make sure that you're getting those triggers from external that resets our thinking and start to think about what could we do differently. How can we differentiate from others or from our competitors? How can we drive change?
Very good stuff. Thank you, John. So guys, we have about 8 minutes left. I'm going to end the questions there. I'm sorry for not getting to everything. Going to go ahead and move on to closing remarks. We've got about maybe 2 minutes per person between the four of us. So Rich, I'd like to start with you. If you could just give us some closing remarks on the topic, it'd be good.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out 3 names: Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, Mary Jackson. Who are these 3 ladies? These 3 ladies had something in common. They didn't let resistance to change them. They changed the resistance. These 3 ladies were instrumental in driving the success of the United States space program. You talk about being in one of the most highly resistance, biased organizations in the 1960s. It's just unbelievable how successful these ladies actually were. And remember, Alan made a statement about when you get up in the morning and you look in the mirror, and if you see the same person, get back in bed. Well, these ladies actually led themselves. So they excelled. I know Dorothy Vaughan actually learned how to program a IBM mainframe computer by learning Fortran on.
Okay, I think I'm letting in some technology issues, so I could not hear Rich. Am I still in the call, Justin? Just Sanchez?
Yeah, you're still here. I'm sorry, I was on mute. I think we've lost Rich, unfortunately.
Okay.
So John, why don't you go ahead and take over?
Yeah. So now, personally, looking to what drives leadership, what drives a person to become a leader, I think it first starts with trusting yourself. Make sure that you believe in yourself. Make sure that you are open for new things, new thinking, new ways of working. Dare to take decisions, dare to fail. And the more risks that you, not saying risk, but the more you dare to fail, the less you will fail. Because you're getting more experience, you start thinking better, you start learning more before you start acting. So it is really good to drive change from a personal behavior. And I think Alan also referred to that in his speech. And I think it's really important to take your personal leadership and to start driving the change. And then you will see that you will become the leader for others also to follow you.
Go ahead and talk.
Okay, am I on? I'm sorry. So let me just finish by saying, John, and for all of you, being a leader is more a decision that you make about you. It isn't something that I can make you. It isn't something that an organization can make you. It isn't something that really anybody else can do for you. I think ultimately the best leaders are those who wake up and they decide that the person who lives in that body is going to become a leader, first of that person. And because they become a leader of that person, that probably makes them a potential leader of others. But it is really a decision that you have to make that you are going to become a leader. And when you make that decision, you put yourself on a journey. You're going to start learning the things that you need to learn almost by nature. You're going to start learning different things from your successes and your failures that will blow right over others. When you make that decision to be, then you'll understand that what you do can't make you what others are trying to do. And that's really probably the most important thing that you can do going away today would be to walk out of here and decide that whether you thought you were before, I'm going to leave today and I'm going to make a decision to become the person that I've been trying to become by doing things. Now I'm going to become that person internally, and that will change your life. It'll change the way you perceive in your businesses. It'll change the way you perceive in your homes and in your relationships when you make that simple decision to become something.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. It looks like we actually did get Rich back, but just going to go ahead and move on to closing remarks. Sorry we lost you there, Rich, but we're out of time here. Yeah, so again, just want to start off closing remarks for myself by saying thank you to the speakers, guys. This was extremely enlightening. It was really wonderful to hear all your thoughts and opinions on the theme. Very, very, very good stuff. So thank you all for being here. All right. Next thing on my closing remarks list is the plug for the next session. So just to the audience. So guys, this is the first Radix Plus talk hosted by Radix US. But we do intend on doing one of these about once a month. So the next one should be in August. Stay tuned to your social media feeds for more information on that to come. We're working out themes and speakers at the moment. We'll have those confirmed shortly. And finally, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Really appreciate the audience being here. We had some great questions, some great discussion, and definitely appreciate everybody coming today. So with that, thank you very much, and hope everybody has a good day. Thank you.